All right, let's dive right into this explainer and fundamentally shift how we think about natural fruit color. For anyone growing or even just buying high-quality produce, color is the ultimate first impression, right? But today, we're going to look way past the surface to decode what that color is actually telling us about the plant's whole journey. It's honestly a fascinating question. Why do some fruits absolutely glow with this rich, vibrant color at harvest, while others just stay pale, uneven, or frankly, kind of disappointing? I mean, you can have the exact same variety of fruit growing in the exact same field, or sometimes literally hanging on the exact same tree, and yet you see vastly different results when it's time to pick. So what's going on? Well, here is the foundational concept we really need to grasp. Fruit color is absolutely not about luck. When you look at the stark contrast between a premium batch and an average one, it tells a much deeper story. That color? It's basically the final visual receipt of everything the plant experienced all season long. We're talking sunlight, nutrition, water balance, temperature, and overall health. It all culminates right there on the skin of the fruit. And the really good news here is that we can naturally improve this without relying on chemical shortcuts.
So here's our roadmap for the masterclass today. We'll start with the truth about color, explore the actual biology of pigments, break down 6 key environmental factors, look at some crop-specific needs, and finally, figure out how to master natural color systemically. Let's get into it.
All right, part 1, the truth about color, and why it's so much more than just cosmetic.
Probably the biggest misconception out there is that color is just a superficial trait. It absolutely is not. It actually acts as a biological indicator. It signals maturity, it shows us sugar development within the flesh, it marks proper pigment formation, and yeah, ultimately, it drives market value. Brighter, uniform color boosts buyer appeal simply because our brains naturally associate it with those exact qualities. But here's the catch. If you chase color the wrong way, you can actually ruin the flavor or even damage the crop. So healthy, natural color development really has to be the goal. Moving right along to part 2, the biology of pigments, or literally where this color actually comes from. So fruits contain very specific biological pigments, and the balance of these basically dictates what we see. Chlorophyll gives us those greens. Carotenoids, they bring out the bright yellows and oranges, and then anthocyanins are responsible for those deep reds and purples. Now, here is the real magic of ripening. As a fruit matures, that green chlorophyll usually declines, which allows the other pigments to increase and finally shine through. It's a beautiful process that proves color change is intrinsically tied to the biology of ripening itself.
Okay, part 3, the 6 factors of color. Because if color's weak, something is slowing that biology down.
Let's start with sunlight. It is an incredibly powerful driver. Think about it. Fruit hidden deep inside a dense, overcrowded canopy is simply getting less light, so it colors poorly compared to an open canopy. But you can't just blast it with sun either, right? Sudden, harsh exposure is just going to cause sunburn. So the real goal here is managed light through selective pruning, trellising, and proper spacing.
Factor 2 is maturity. And honestly, far too many harvests happen entirely too early. A grower might look at the fruit, see the size is right, and think it's ready. But biologically, the pigments are still developing. Natural color improves drastically when fruit is allowed to properly mature according to its specific variety and climate. Now, I'm not saying let it get overripe, but you have to understand that exact harvest window. Patience isn't just a virtue here, it is highly profitable.
Factor 3 is nutrition, and specifically, we're looking at the balance between potassium and nitrogen. Potassium is absolutely vital for healthy plant function and giving you that beautiful final fruit finish. On the flip side, though, you really have to beware of overfeeding with nitrogen. If you add excess nitrogen late in the season, it pushes the plant to create excessive vegetative growth. It gets distracted making lots of leaves, loses focus on the fruit, and actively delays coloring. So feed the plant wisely, not aggressively. Rounding out our 6 factors, we have water management, temperature ranges, and overall plant health. Inconsistent irrigation is a huge stressor. Overwatering promotes lush leaf growth, but severe drought reduces size and quality. Then there's temperature. Apples, for instance, really need those cool nights to blush red, while extreme heat can halt development entirely. And finally, plant health. If you've got pest damage or root issues, poor color is basically just the plant screaming at you that it's overburdened.
Which brings us to the absolute #1 management technique to relieve that burden, crop load management. Look, when you have too many fruits on one plant, it divides the plant's energy and severely slows down uniform ripening. So when managing crop load, remember that thinning is absolutely crucial. Leaving fewer fruits on the branch allows the plant to focus its energy, which creates much better, larger, and uniformly colored fruits.
All right, part 4, crop-specific needs, because we definitely need tailored approaches here.
Different crops obviously demand distinct strategies. Tomatoes, they need steady watering and balanced feeding. Tree fruits, like mangoes and apples, lean heavily on canopy light and harvest timing. Berries depend on rigorous disease control and super healthy root systems. But if you look across the board, the underlying principle is exactly the same. Reduce the stress and optimize the conditions.
So a crucial point here is knowing what practices to eliminate. The biggest mistakes to avoid are heavy late nitrogen, crowded pruning, harvesting way too early, irregular watering, ignoring pests, and, maybe the worst one, relying on random miracle sprays to try and force a visual change. Please avoid chasing quick chemical fixes. Premium, vibrant color is grown from the soil up. It is not sprayed on out of panic at the very end of the season.
And we also have to acknowledge an important truth. Genetics set the limits. Not every variety is biologically meant to turn deep red or bright yellow. Some cultivars are just naturally going to stay greener or lighter, even when they're perfectly ripe. You have to compare your fruit to its specific variety standard. Seriously, do not drive yourself crazy staring at highly edited photos of different cultivars on the internet, expecting your naturally green fruit to magically turn crimson. It's just not going to happen.
Which brings us to our final section, mastering natural color, and bringing this all together.
I want you to imagine two totally different approaches to growing. On one hand, you have someone who constantly chases quick tricks, just looking for a shortcut to make the fruit look good right before harvest. On the other hand, you have someone who improves the entire system. They optimize the sunlight, the soil health, the irrigation consistency, and the nutrition balance. Between the impatient grower and the systemic grower, nature is consistently going to reward systems. Reliable fruit comes from a reliable system every single time.
So what's your action plan? It's simple. 1. Manage your canopy light. 2. Balance your nutrition. Prioritize potassium and control that late nitrogen. 3. Water consistently. 4. Don't be afraid to thin the fruit. And 5. Wait for true biological maturity before you harvest. These are the simple, powerful steps you can take to naturally reduce stress and support plant health for significantly brighter fruit.
I want to leave you with this final thought, which is a quote directly from our source material that sums this whole explainer up perfectly. Beautiful color is usually the final chapter of good management. It's not an accident, and there's no magic trick. Since true quality really begins long before harvest, what systems will you improve today to ensure a beautiful final chapter for your crops?